Good afternoon and welcome into the corner. It's Chris's Corner here on Spreaker.com, a national sports affiliate. I am your host, Chris Sylvester, and on today's show, I am joined by college basketball / college football analyst, not from the Carolina Panthers, but rather from the blog Adam Morrison Crying. He is Cam Newton. Cam, welcome into the Friday afternoon edition of the corner. What's up, man?
Nice to be here. Not much. Just taking in the entire day of bowl games and other stuff among that.
Well, it's certainly a busy time of year for sports as we wind down 2012. I know you're a big guy on college basketball, so we'll get there first. Real quickly, going over the top 10 in college basketball, you got Duke at number 1, Michigan at 2, Arizona at 3, Louisville at 4, Indiana at 5, Kansas at 6, Missouri at 7, Cincinnati, who suffered their first loss of the season last night, at number 8, Syracuse, coming off of that loss last week to Temple, got pushed back to number 9, and Ohio State, the only 2-loss team in the top 10. Now, I did mention Cincinnati. Talk a little bit about last night's upset win, if you could really call it an upset win, because the Lobos were ranked in the previous weeks, but after getting upset by Nate Walters and South Dakota State, they were removed from the top 25. They are still receiving a plethora of votes, 66, which is the most that any team not in the top 25 is receiving. Talk a little bit about last night's win for the Lobos against the Bearcats.
Well, last night's win was obviously a statement one for New Mexico. Having many of their fans, I know, felt like they should be in the top 25, as they were earlier in the season. But that loss against South Dakota State certainly put them back quite a bit, even though they've beaten teams like Connecticut and such. And last night's game really showed that New Mexico could go into a hostile environment and win against the number 8 team in the nation. Although, if any of you had followed me last night, you would have seen the big rant I was going on about why Cincinnati was pretty overrated anyways. They have one of the weakest strength of schedules, like I said, in the entire Division I, much weaker than New Mexico's by far. They really didn't deserve to be number 8. And it showed last night, although it was closer than I thought it was going to be. I thought New Mexico was going to win by at least 5 points. It ended up being a lot closer, with New Mexico only winning by a point off of that Alex Kirk block. So,
yeah, it was a great game last night down in Cincinnati. You look at this New Mexico team, they did lose Drew Gordon, their leading man, from last year's team, but Steve Alford really has his boys ready to go. You know, Kendall Williams has been so good for the Lobos. He's averaging 14.9 points per game. Hugh Greenwood, the sophomore, has been huge on both ends of the ball, defensively and offensively, as well as Snell for New Mexico. And it's not like this New Mexico Lobos team has played any cupcakes really on their schedule. You know, this is a team that opened up with a 5-point win against Davidson. They beat Connecticut when they were ranked 21st in the nation. They also got a huge overtime win at Indiana State, who just placed 3rd in the Diamond Head Classic in Honolulu this past weekend, as well as sweeping their rival New Mexico State out of the WAC. And of course, last night's win at Cincinnati. They go into conference play after another tough game this upcoming week at St. Louis in the Atlantic 10. St. Louis 8-3. The Mountain West is really becoming an elite conference. You know, the Pac-12 was down last year, has picked it up a little bit this year, but still isn't nearly what it was 3 or 4 years ago. In your opinion, where does the Mountain West Conference rank among other conferences in college basketball?
well, as you said, the Pac-12 is not as great as they used to be. Although Arizona obviously providing some bright spots in an otherwise abysmal year for them, as a few years ago were. The Mountain West obviously is becoming better. I mean, you look, they have 5 teams already with 10 wins. Boise State's on the verge, 9 wins. Wyoming's undefeated still, one of the last 4 undefeated teams in the nation. I mean, you've got UNLV and San Diego State, both great teams in these past few years. Steve Fisher's San Diego State team has really shown their force to be reckoned with, just barely losing to Arizona the other night. So I think the Mountain West definitely stacks up pretty well against the Pac-12. Even against some other leagues. I mean, the SEC is terrible too. I think they're better than the SEC. You got Georgia at 4-9, although I respect they're a young team. I mean, 4-7, my bad. They're a young team, though, but like I said, the Mountain West is a lot better than some of these power conferences, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely have to agree with you. After seeing New Mexico last night go into Cincinnati, although you did call it Cincinnati perhaps overrated, which they were obviously, you see who they played in the non-conference, a lot of cupcakes in that schedule. Granted, they are 12-0. Not that many teams are 12-0 if you look down the score sheet, but after seeing New Mexico go into Cincinnati, a hostile environment like you said last night, and get a W, do you think this team has Do you think this team has a chance to repeat as Mountain West Conference champions?
Yes, I do. For a number of reasons. One, Steve Alford's got this team running pretty well so far this year. You've also got San Diego State, who's pretty good, but we'll see how that fares out. That's my only big concern. UNLV kind of, Wyoming, they may be 12-0, but they won't stick there very long, I don't think, once conference play starts. I mean, they beat Colorado, that's it. Anyway, I think the Lobos will hang on. They should do pretty well in conference play. Like you said, UNLV and San Diego State are going to be their only competition. I think they could at least, that's their only competition, so let me just put it that.
Well, obviously, it is a very strong conference. You do have also Boise State. Probably not going to win the conference, but got a huge upset win at Creighton this year, so that's certainly something to watch out for as well. You're looking at possibly 4 or 5 bids for the Mountain West, am I right?
Oh, yeah, you're certainly right. Like you said, Boise, I guess, would be the dark horse of this Mountain West squad. I mean, you said they're kind of on the verge right there. They do have some kind of statement wins, like you said earlier in the year, at Creighton. This is Creighton's first loss at home in November since like the 80s, I'm pretty sure. And that's a tough Creighton team anyway, so that's a big win. And so they're obviously on the brink right there. I think they could have a shot, but I'm still going to give it to New Mexico at this point.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be interesting to see next year. We're not going to get into this now, but it's going to be interesting to see next year how the Mountain West recovers when they lose San Diego State and Boise State to the Big West Conference with all this conference realignment going on. Staying on the West Coast, the number 7 Missouri Tigers visit the UCLA Bruins tonight at the new Pauley Pavilion in Los Angeles. I mean, UCLA really starting to find their identity, I guess. You know, they don't really play too many close games, too many good teams in the non-conference schedule. Any chance UCLA can get the home win against Missouri, who is coming off of a huge win against Illinois?
Well, I think UCLA can win in a few reasons. One, Louisville already showed how you beat Missouri this year when Louisville beat them by 23 points. You get the ball inside to Courtney Zhang. You get the ball inside your big man, I guess you would say. UCLA will have a shot, especially playing at home. Pauley Pavilion's a great place to play. I mean, it'll be their 7th straight victory for the Tigers if they go into Pauley Pavilion and win. But it'll be the first time they've played, and these two teams have played since 2002. It'll be really interesting to watch, but I do think that UCLA will put out the win tonight. Like you said, they're finally starting to pick up and get on a roll and find themselves.
Well, we'll really see how Missouri fares. Missouri, of course, in its first year in the SEC conference. Like you said, really not a strong conference, so Missouri wants to pick up these quality non-conference wins while they can to improve their resume come March. But we talk about UCLA. I saw something on your Twitter feed about 25 minutes ago. Do you think that Ben Howland's job with a bad loss tonight against Missouri at home could be in jeopardy?
The thing about Ben Howland, years ago, he was such a good coach when he first came to UCLA. Very good, back-to-back Final Four and everything. But they have slowly been on a decline since about a few years ago. I mean, they're not the UCLA, obviously, of old times, with John Wooden and all of them, but I think that more that they have gone downhill as he has been coached, I think his job will be more and more in jeopardy, especially if they don't finish in one of the top spots of the Pac-12 of not winning.
Yeah, I mean, certainly after getting that fantastic recruiting class with guys like Anderson and Shabazz Muhammad, certainly a lot of people expecting UCLA to return to the old UCLA, a team that could go out there and contend for a Final Four, at least an NCAA tournament bid. They look like they're starting to finally gel out there on the court, but a real test tonight against Missouri, who's coming into Pauley Pavilion. That game at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN2. Now, we got a couple of interesting games today. Stony Brook at Seton Hall, Baylor at Gonzaga. You told me previously that you have these two teams on upset alert, Gonzaga and Seton Hall tonight. Explain to me why you have Baylor going in and beating Gonzaga and Stony Brook going in and beating Seton Hall. Start with Baylor and Gonzaga, the 13th ranked team in the nation.
Well, with Baylor and Gonzaga, Baylor has obviously shown that they can win in hostile environments, winning in Rupp, being the first team to win in Rupp in the John Calipari era. They can show that they can win in these tough environments, which is exactly what the Kennel is. One of the most difficult places to play in the nation. So it'll be interesting to watch that. Plus, I think Baylor's proven that they can beat these big teams. Gonzaga really hasn't played too many great teams this year. They have played some good teams, like, for example, Illinois. But then again, they lost to Illinois. They don't have really any statement wins. Gonzaga does. That shows who they can, that they've proven that they can stand up there and hold up to their number 13 ranking.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, they have wins against BCS programs like West Virginia, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Washington State, as well as Kansas State. All those are good wins, but other than Kansas State, who just moved into the top 25 rankings at 25 after upsetting Florida last week, I mean, really don't have a signature win to date. But certainly a win tonight versus Baylor and then going on the road to face Oklahoma State on Monday would certainly be two wins that would look very impressive on the Gonzaga Bulldogs resume as well. Now we move to Stony Brook at Seton Hall. Stony Brook 8-3, Seton Hall 10-2 out of the Big East Conference. They're 6-0 at home. Why do you like Stony Brook going into Seton Hall and handing Seton Hall their first home loss of the season tonight?
What's the funny thing? Stony Brook has played two pretty good South Big Conference teams this year. They played Connecticut, hung with them, lost by 11. They played Maryland, December 21st. They only lost by 7 there. They've been able to stick with these big teams. They haven't been able to beat them, but then again, these Maryland and Connecticut are better than Seton Hall. Seton Hall hasn't really impressed me this year, I guess you'd say. Losses to LSU and Washington kind of made me sort of uneasy about them, only winning by 4 against Wake Forest, which is, according to Ken Pomeroy, the 11th best team in North Carolina. So I think they should definitely be on upset alert. I don't necessarily think Stony Brook will beat them, but Stony Brook's going to be a tough out in the Prudential Center. So.
Well, it'll certainly be interesting to watch and see if your predictions come true. I definitely agree with you about Stony Brook. I don't know about Baylor. Baylor is a very good team. They were a tournament team last season and a very tough team to beat last season. Not really the high-power offense team they were last season like they are. Not the high-power offensive team they are this season like they were last season, but we'll see if they can go up to Spokane and Washington and beat Gonzaga. As for tomorrow, last year North Carolina went into Vegas and UNLV handed the then number 1 Tar Heels their first loss of the season. Obviously, North Carolina nothing close to what they were last season. They are a 9-3, not even ranked. 6-0 at home though. UNLV, the 20th ranked team in the nation, coming in at 11-1. How do you like the Runnin' Rebels' chances going into Chapel Hill and beating the Tar Heels tomorrow?
I think they're very good. I think they have very good chances to beat North Carolina tomorrow. Like you said, the only thing that North Carolina basically has going for them is being able to play at the Dean Dome tomorrow. That's basically it. I mean, the Rebels are really, they're 21st in the nation in points scored, and North Carolina really showed this feeling I had about them at the beginning of the year that they aren't like North Carolina teams for the past few years when they got dominated by Texas.
Yeah, I know that was certainly a surprising outing considering Texas lost to a Division II team, Chaminade. Obviously, can't really have a knock on Chaminade. They seem to get a win over a Division I team at least once every year, but certainly that was a terrible loss for North Carolina. Knocked them out of the top 25, but UNLV, another one of these Mountain West Conference teams that has a chance to make a statement tomorrow at Chapel Hill. Will be interesting to see if Roy Williams' squad can pull out a victory against the 20th ranked Runnin' Rebels at home. How about Butler visiting Vanderbilt? Vanderbilt not even close to the team they were last year at 5-5. They are the defending SEC champions. A lot of people forget that they did knock off Kentucky last year, but how do you like the number 18 Butler Bulldogs going into Vanderbilt and beating the Commodores tonight?
It wouldn't surprise me in the least. Like you said, Butler beat the number 1 Indiana Hoosiers. Neutral court game, though. But still, they beat the Indiana Hoosiers, which obviously a win's a win. They're going in playing a 5-5 Vanderbilt team that's still giving me some mixed emotions. I mean, they lost to Marist. They lost to Middle Tennessee. They lost to Davidson at Oregon. I mean, I'm still really uneasy about Vanderbilt. I don't even know, but based on how bad the SEC is, I would still expect them to finish pretty high in the SEC.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Butler in its first year, I believe, out of the Horizon Conference in the Atlantic 10. Do you think the Atlantic 10 is a stronger conference than the SEC at this point?
Oh, I have always been a big fan of the Atlantic 10 Conference, personally. I've always liked the St. Joseph's Hawks because I love Jameer Nelson and Phil Martelli. I regard him one of the most underrated coaches in the game at this point. But I think the Atlantic 10 is extremely strong. I mean, you have some of these best traditions and programs in the Atlantic 10 you don't find anyplace else. I mean, you've got Temple, who just beat the Syracuse Orange.
Yeah.
I mean, which is a huge state of win. They just added VCU as a huge pickup for them. They still have Xavier, which seems to be a perennial power. I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting. I think they will be better than that SEC.
All right, and I know you have a lot to talk about this game. Kentucky, the defending national champions, 8-3, 0-1 on the road, visiting Louisville, the number 4 team in the nation. Give me your analysis on tomorrow's Kentucky at Louisville game.
Okay, being from Kentucky, living in the capital, I have seen the best and the worst of this rivalry. This rivalry seems to always bring out the worst in people. It's so nasty, which is why I contend to the fact it is the best rivalry in the nation. I think it's better than Ohio State, Michigan. I think it's better than North Carolina, Duke. I think it's the best sports rivalry, in my opinion, in the nation. I mean, even Yankees, Red Sox, no contest. I think this is the nastiest one. And so coming into this game, Louisville has not beaten a Kentucky team in the John Calipari era. The last time they beat them was when they swept Kentucky back in the Billy Gillispie era, which is, some people probably won't want to mention that name around here. But I think Louisville will pull out the win due largely to the fact that their guards are much superior to Kentucky. Russ Smith and Peyton Seaver, both very quick, both very good shooters, definitely improved in the past year. Their numbers in three-point percentage, free throw percentage, all of this has increased. News that Courtney Zhang will be playing. I was kind of uneasy about this game, but now that I know that Courtney Zhang will be playing, I am more certain because he has definitely improved. And with him, the Cardinals' defense is 10 times better. He's a great inside force. He can go toe-to-toe with just about any center. Went toe-to-toe last year with Anthony Davis, the player of the year. And I'm very much looking forward to this game. I think Louisville will win by at least 5 points.
Oh yeah, it'll certainly be something fun to watch tomorrow at 4 o'clock Eastern. The final tune-up, if you'd like to call it that, if they can get the win for Louisville before they hit Big East play. Real quickly before we head to commercial break and get into college football in the next segment, where do you rank the Big East among toughest conferences in the nation? Obviously, the Big Ten has been very strong this year, but do you still think the Big East is the toughest conference in the nation?
I do. We talk about the Big Ten. The Big Ten always has these teams ranked in the top. But the last time a Big Ten team won the national championship was, I'm pretty sure it was Michigan State back in 2000, if I'm correct. So they really, I don't consider them as strong as they are. I mean, they're certainly strong regular season. But I still think that the Big East is the toughest conference because they have these powers that seem to be good every year and have some of the best tradition. I mean, you've got Georgetown, Louisville, Marquette, Syracuse, Providence, Cincinnati, all great teams that I think will be sure tournament standouts come March.
Yeah, it'll certainly be interesting to see if UConn. Obviously, UConn can't go to the tournament this year because of eligibility issues and problems with the NCAA. But it'll be interesting to see how Coach Dixon and Pitt respond after that abysmal season last year in the Big East. All right, when we get back, we will get to the college football segment and we will wrap up Chris's Corner on Spreaker.com. Welcome back into Chris's Corner. Here I'm joined by Cam Newton from the blog Adam Morrison Crying. You can follow him on Twitter at Morrison Crying. Where did you get that name?
Well, my friend and I started this blog years ago. Never big fans of Morrison Crying. Never big fans of Adam Morrison. It's just kind of seemed really cocky, and him crying after losing in the NCAA tournament a few years back just really set us over the edge and really solidified our opinion about him. And it seemed like the perfect name.
Yeah, Adam Morrison certainly. Hey, he did win a couple championships with the Los Angeles Lakers, right in the bench. But yeah, certainly I understand.
That's the thing.
Yeah, that's.
Adam Morrison has more championship rings than LeBron James. So.
Yeah. Well, we'll see where those two rank in a couple years. Now, it's college bowl season. Who doesn't like college bowl season unless you just aren't a football fanatic like most of us are? We've seen teams like Utah State and Arizona and BYU and UCF and Louisiana Lafayette and Boise State and SMU and Central Michigan and San Jose State and Cincinnati and Baylor pull out wins in bowl games this season. So far, what has been the most intriguing bowl game to you that you've watched so far that's already been played?
For me, I thought that the Duke game last night was pretty intense. After Duke jumped out to that 16-3 lead and then relinquished it pretty easily. I mean, they had plenty of opportunities to go up by a bunch. The game was riddled with errors and such by both teams, and Duke should have been up by more than that. Then going to the halftime, I thought it was despicable because Duke was about to kick that field goal. Pretty sure it was a 50-plus yarder. And Tommy Tuberville, with no timeouts left, sends a player out onto the field. There's an illegal procedure called on them after they made the field goal. So they had to redo the play, and then Duke missed the field goal. David Cutcliffe seemed pretty angry going into halftime about that. And so far, I think, and then for it to play out where Duke gets down by a bunch, works their way back, looks like they're going to win with a minute left, fumbles the ball, and Cincinnati pulls out the win by 14 points. So.
Yeah, you definitely feel bad for that Duke running back. Duke trying to win its first bowl game since 1961 in the Cotton Bowl. What was the last time that Duke won a bowl game? Another intriguing matchup last night: Baylor against UCLA at the Poinsettia Bowl down in San Diego, California. Baylor a 49-26 victory over Brett Hundley and the UCLA Bruins. UCLA, after beating USC, you could only go up from there, right? But 3 straight losses, 2 in a row to Stanford, 1 coming in the Pac-12 championship game, and the 49-26 final score. It really wasn't even that close last night. Baylor showing that they were the much better team against UCLA. This UCLA program, though, on the way up. Give me your thoughts about this Baylor-UCLA game that Baylor won 49-26.
Well, Baylor, as you said, certainly dominated the game. They only stat that absolutely amazes me is that they dominated this game so much, and they only threw 13 passes the entire game, as compared to UCLA's 52 passes. And then to win 49-26, obviously it is a big statement about their rushing game for Baylor. 67 rushing attempts. Absolutely astounding. I think the thing that capped it off for me last night, though, was UCLA, after scoring a touchdown with no time left and celebrating in the end zone as you're losing by 23 points. That kind of just summed it up pretty well.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't sit with a lot of people well. UCLA was able to outscore Baylor 16-14 in the second half, but certainly Baylor took the foot off the gas pedal a little bit in the second half there. Nick Florence leaves, as well as Terrence Williams for the Baylor Bears. Lake Seastrom came out this past week and said that he is the fastest back in the nation. He's the most powerful back in the nation, and he will win the Heisman in 2013. Now, I don't have a problem with the guy having confidence, maybe saying he's the fastest back in the nation. But going out there and saying you're going to win the Heisman? I mean, you got guys like Johnny Manziel returning. You got 2 fantastic players in DeAnthony Thomas and Marcus Mariota, young players up at Oregon. And you have a plethora of, other freshmen that might surprise you, like Manziel did with Texas A&M this season. Is it really necessary for Lake Seastrom to come out and make comments like, I'm going to win the Heisman in 2013?
I like to see improvement first. This year, he only had more than 10 rushes in his last 6 games of the season. In those games, he certainly did pretty well in those games. But he did prove himself in the bowl game, certainly, with his 138 rushing yards. I don't like the idea of him coming out and saying this, though, because I feel that it's hubris, just a fatal flaw of many people. And next year, when he does not win the Heisman, it will definitely come back to bite him.
Yeah, certainly. Just going out there and blatantly making those comments. I don't, you gotta love the kid's confidence. He's only a sophomore, gonna be a junior next season, but to go out there and say you're gonna win the Heisman, that in my opinion, that's just a little bit too much. You got Ohio, Louisiana, Monroe, Rutgers, Virginia Tech, and Minnesota, Texas Tech. Does anybody want to watch these games today? Is there any matchup that you'd like to point out that's interesting?
I think Virginia Tech and Rutgers is going to be a good game. A lot of people are going into this game saying that Virginia Tech is going to win. Personally, I picked Rutgers in this game for the upset because, in my opinion, Rutgers has showed themselves to be a pretty good team. Although Virginia Tech is only a 1-point favorite, Rutgers almost making a BCS bowl. They, quite honestly, I think to say it, should have beaten Louisville. But I think they will win. Also, another good game today, Texas Tech and Minnesota. That game, I think Texas Tech will kill Minnesota. Texas Tech, 13-point favorites. I think they should have wiped the floor with them, despite the fact that they won't have Tuberville. They'll still do pretty well against this Minnesota team that, although they started off 4-0, finished 2-6 in conference play for a 6-6 record. So.
Yeah, certainly some matchups today. I gotta agree with you on the Texas Tech Minnesota game. Minnesota, getting a lot of those wins. Most of those wins in the non-conference, they went 2-6 in the Big Ten. So blowout alert there in that bowl game. Got to ask you about some of these interesting bowl games. Number 23 Texas and Oregon State in the Valero Alamo Bowl. Who do you have in this game?
I picked Oregon State in this game for a few reasons. One, obviously, Oregon State's the favorite. Texas will keep it close, I think. But the reason Oregon State will win is because they have a committed quarterback. Texas has been swapping between quarterbacks all year. And when you do that, you will not be prepared to go in against these teams that are set in their ways. I think Oregon State will beat Texas.
LSU and Clemson in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. Obviously, not the BCS Bowl that both these teams wanted to be in, but still a very interesting bowl game between the LSU Tigers and Clemson. So who do you have in this Chick-fil-A Bowl? Number 8 team in the nation versus the number 14 team in the nation.
I always try to root against the SEC because I do not like them. But Les Miles is one of my favorite coaches in this game. I think he will have this LSU team going in there prepared to beat Clemson. Clemson, if you remember last year, they didn't even fare well against in their bowl last year at the Fifth Bowl, the Orange Bowl, against West Virginia, getting destroyed by them. I think LSU should pretty handily beat Clemson.
South Carolina tries to exercise their demons against number 18 Michigan and Denard Robinson in the Outback Bowl. Do the Gamecocks get it done against the Michigan Wolverines?
Oh, yes, I think they do. Michigan, I thought they were going to be so much better this year than they turned out to be. South Carolina, their quality defense should take apart the entire Michigan offense. Denard Robinson hasn't looked that great this season as he has in past seasons. And I think South Carolina will beat Michigan by at least 10 points, I think.
Georgia and Nebraska in the Capital One Bowl. Georgia, of course, coming off that tough loss in the SEC championship game against Alabama. Nebraska, after giving up 70 points to Wisconsin. Any way Nebraska beats Georgia?
I don't see it. Georgia being so close to beating Alabama probably would have gotten into the into the national championship game. That game that close to beating Alabama will propel them. They're obviously angry about that. Plus, they're just talent-wise, they're better than Nebraska. Like you said, Nebraska really showed their true colors, I think, in their loss against 7-5 Wisconsin. So I think Georgia should wipe the floor with Nebraska.
Is the third time the charm for Wisconsin in Pasadena against number 6 Stanford in the Rose Bowl? I picked Wisconsin. I don't know why, but I just think Wisconsin's going to do it this year. Third time's the charm. For you, does Wisconsin, who finished 4-4, only reason they're in this game is because Penn State and Ohio State were both ineligible for postseason play. Anyway, Wisconsin beat Stanford. I mean, they did put up 70 points against Nebraska.
Stanford, I picked Stanford in this game. Still kind of uneasy. Like you said, third time's a charm, for sure. Wisconsin maybe 8-5, but you got to think many of those 5 losses came within overtime losses or within the final few minutes of the fourth quarter. So they very well could have had that better record. But I'm still picking Stanford. I mean, they lost in their only flip-up of the season, Washington by 4, and that's a very, very close and interesting and fun game against Notre Dame they played earlier in the season.
Yeah, Wisconsin playing with a third-string quarterback after Danny O'Brien, the Maryland transfer, didn't work out, and Joel Stave, the redshirt freshman, was injured. So it'll be interesting to see how Wisconsin does. But, they still do have Monty Ball in the backfield. It will be his final game as a Badger, so expect Monty Ball to perhaps have a big game against the Stanford defense. Number 15, Northern Illinois, out of the Mid-American Conference, plays Florida State, the number 12 team in the nation, the ACC champions, in the Discover Orange Bowl. First, explain to me how Northern Illinois is in a BCS Bowl.
Well, I mean, it's summed up in the fact that the other teams just weren't as stand out as Northern Illinois was. I mean, they made the top 15 They made top 16, which is that cutoff for BCS. They won the MAC. And quite honestly, I'd love to see them beat Florida State just to shut up Kirk Herbstreit. After he went on that rant during the BCS selection show, I was absolutely in the tank for Northern Illinois. I have nothing against Florida State, but I think Northern Illinois will hang close to Florida State. I don't think they'll win. But if they do win, it's going to be because of their superstar quarterback, Jordan Lynch, winning it for them.
Yeah, certainly a lot of people will be going for the underdog, the heavy underdog, Northern Illinois against Florida State in the Discover Orange Bowl. I know you're a Louisville guy, but is there any chance that this game between Louisville and Florida is close?
As much as I want it to be close, just Lord, I don't think it will be. Florida 2-touchdown favorites against Louisville. I had high hopes about Louisville coming into the season. They disappointed me against Connecticut. They disappointed me against Syracuse. And I think Florida, who, honestly, I didn't think Florida should have been in a BCS Bowl. I thought it should have been Georgia, because Georgia had beaten Florida. But the only reason Georgia had that second loss was because they were in an SEC championship game. I thought they should have been playing in the Sugar Bowl. But the funny thing, I think, is, as Kentucky Sports Radio put it, let us think in that Joker Phillips is going to beat Louisville in a bowl game this year.
Yeah, certainly. It'll be a good game at the All-State Sugar Bowl on January 2nd, next Wednesday. This should be a high-scoring one. How do you like Oregon and Kansas State? Who do you like in the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl?
Okay, this game is going to have so much offense, it's going to be ridiculous. I had been rooting all season long for Kansas State to go to the national championship, win it. Bill Snyder, one of the best coaches. I admire him so much. He's a great coach. They're going into this game against the high-powered Oregon offense. I don't know if they'll be able to stop Oregon as much as it's basically going to be a shootout and who can hang with them. I picked Kansas State, but you never know. I think Oregon State. I might even be changing that pick because, like I said, I think Oregon's offense will just overpower Kansas State.
Yeah, definitely. Marcus Mariota, like I said, Kenyon Barnard, DeAnthony Thomas. That offense is loaded for Oregon, but can't forget the things that Colin Klein and Kansas State can do. And it's not too shabby of a Kansas State defense as well. You know, obviously their only blemish was giving up 50-plus points to Baylor in their only loss of the season, but this is a team that went into Oklahoma and won a close, low-scoring game. Speaking of the Sooners, Texas A&M and Oklahoma in the AT&T Cotton Bowl, you know, Johnny Manziel did just win the Heisman, but, you know, I'm going Oklahoma in this game. It's Landry Jones' final game under center, and I think he's going to leave Oklahoma on a good note.
This game, when they announced that this was the Cotton Bowl, I was so excited. This, in my opinion, I think this is going to be the best bowl game to watch this year. It's going to be a great shootout, a great duel between two awesome quarterbacks. Like I said, Landry Jones and Johnny Manziel facing off against each other. It's kind of a shame Texas A&M left for the SEC, or we would have already seen this earlier this year. So I am looking forward to that game. It'll be very interesting. I think Oklahoma will win as well, despite Texas A&M being favored in.
Finally, Notre Dame and Alabama square off in the BCS National Championship game. Alabama, a 9.5 favorite against Notre Dame. This game's played in Miami. Notre Dame 12-0 on the season. Alabama 12-1. Their only loss coming to Johnny Manziel and Texas A&M. I got Notre Dame. For whatever reason, I just think it's Notre Dame's year. It's meant to be for Notre Dame. Everything that's gone right for them has. You know, people's knock against Notre Dame is that they went to triple overtime with a team like Pitt, and they played a fairly close game against Boston College. Obviously, this is going to be the complete opposite of a Kansas State-Oregon game. A lot of defense we're expecting in the national championship. But does Nick Saban and his boys get it done, or does Notre Dame run the table, go 13-0, and bring a national championship back home to South Bend?
I cannot stand Alabama. I cannot stand Nick Saban. I think he's a mercenary. He doesn't care about team allegiances. He'll go wherever he needs to, which is proven. Jumping from LSU to the NFL, coming back to Alabama, etc. I don't like Alabama. I don't like Notre Dame either, but I would much rather see Notre Dame win this national championship. But sadly, I just think Alabama is so tough of a team. I think they will beat Notre Dame. I think it will be closer than people are expecting. Very close. I would love to see Notre Dame win, though, and if they do, it's going to be all around how well their defense holds up against Alabama, and if Everett Golston can help overpower this Alabama defense.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see, and it all goes down January 7th. It's the BCS National Championship game. Number 1, Notre Dame, and number 2, Alabama. Cam, any final words before you exit the show? Thank you so much for joining.
Oh, well, I'd just like to say thank you for having us. It's our first opportunity to do anything like this, and I really appreciated this opportunity.
Yeah, no problem. We'll be sure to get you on for some more college segments in the future here on Chris's Corner. Thanks a lot, Cam.
Thanks.
That was Cam Newton from Adam Morrison Crying, the Adam Morrison Crying blog. You heard the whole story about that when we first came back from our last commercial break. What a show it's been. Talked a lot of college basketball, talked a lot of college football. Didn't really get a chance to get to the NFL or NBA or MLB, but let's face it, right now, well, you know, NFL is pretty big right now, but right now it's college bowl season, and when you're on your break like I am, you just want to kind of sit back and watch as college basketball conference play begins at many conferences around the nation. Sun Belt started yesterday. It's going to be a fun season in college basketball, all leading up to March Madness, which, you know, let's face it, who doesn't love March Madness? And of course, the BCS Bowls will be starting as well. My name is Chris Sylvester. Thanks for tuning in to Chris's Corner on Spreaker.com.